Welcome, everyone, to Spirit Club. I am your host, Angell Kelly. I am an intuitive and a spiritual coach. And this is my first episode. So watch me make a lot of mistakes and stumble. But I thought today I would just talk about what this podcast is going to be about and also my own spiritual journey and awakening. So it was through doing a lot of the inner work that led to my spiritual awakening. So that's what this podcast is going to be about, doing the inner work and all the deep dives around spirituality. So each week I will intuitively tap in to what theme of inner work is alive and present for you guys. And so that could include topics like self-love, confidence, trusting yourself, inner child, opening your heart, you name it. We'll see what's coming up for you that week. And then my guest episodes, which will be a little less frequently, in those we will dive down the rabbit holes of the woo and explore all the things, angels, ascended masters, channeling, astrology, all that fun stuff. So today I want to start with my story. And I want you all to know that I wasn't one of those people that was like born psychic and seeing things their whole lives. I also didn't always have a relationship to God. And I wasn't always doing the work on myself. In fact, my wounds used to run my life. So if you can relate to any of that, then hopefully this story inspires and supports you. So when I look back on my spiritual awakening, I see kind of like two phases. The first phase was like doing a lot of inner work and healing. And the second phase was connecting to God, higher consciousness, love energy, and my intuitive gifts coming online. So back in 2018, I was so stuck and so miserable. I had graduated from university in geology in 2014, and I was desperately trying to get stable work as a geologist. But the oil prices crashed in 2015, and I would get a contract, lose a contract, get a contract, lose a contract, because they would just keep shutting projects down. So I was constantly losing my job, and I would have to go back to serving at a restaurant, which was killing me. I cried almost every day, and shout out to all my friends and my partner because they had to basically talk me off the ledge daily. Love you guys. But I felt like a real victim to the world. And I knew I had so much to give and so much to contribute. And it felt like the universe wasn't letting me. I remember I used to say, well, I guess the universe just doesn't want me to have a successful career. Wow. When I think about it now, I'm like, oof, the things my friends had to listen to. Anyway, so in the summer of 2018, I landed a geology contract, and I immediately felt relief and happiness. And almost as immediately, I saw what a red flag that was. I knew I couldn't have my happiness dependent on having a job, because look what the last 4 years had taught me. I was losing my job every other day. So I knew there was a problem there. And I took that contract as a gift and an opportunity to go inward. So that's where I started my meditation practice. So I want you to picture this. For those of you who don't know, I was working in the field on drilling sites. So these are like middle of nowhere, kind of looks like a little construction site. You're living in trailers, and as a woman, you're always the only woman. There aren't very many women who work in the field. So picture me, I'm out on a well site, and I would meditate every day on top of the trailers, on top of the shacks. The guys, for sure I was being judged, but, I already stuck out like a sore thumb, so I accepted it. But honestly, they're like, sometimes they wouldn't see me because I'm up on top of the shacks, and I would like be meditating, and then I would hear a sound, and I'd look down, and I'd see a rig worker peeing. I'm like, oh, this is fine. So anyway, alongside my meditation practice, I picked up this book called Claim Your Power by Mastin Kipp. Thank you, Mastin. And from what I can remember about the book, it was guiding me through like doing the work to find your purpose and get rid of whatever was standing in the way of that. So that was sort of my entry point into doing the work. And through these two things, I started to detangle my worth from my career. And as I detangled that worth, I realized I didn't actually even care about geology nor want to be a geologist, funnily enough. So that started guiding me towards things that I actually did care about, which at the time was health and holistic nutrition. So I started heading in that direction with my training while working as a geologist. And, funny enough, from that point on, from the minute that I detangled my worth from geology, was the minute I never, ever again had a problem finding work as a geologist. Funny, I know. So classic, super classic. So, anyway, as I started to get results from doing work on myself, I realized, like, wow, you can change your life. It was very, very empowering. So, doing the work became a lifestyle for me. If I was triggered, I would go into that trigger. If I was having a pattern showing up in my life, I would deconstruct that pattern. If I was feeling like I was trying to manifest or bring something into my life um, and couldn't, I would work on unblocking that. And I did all of that work with so much respect and reverence. Sometimes we can get like caught up in doing the inner work as being work and being dark. And I really didn't. I had some friends who were doing it at the time, and we would just like, it would almost become fun. Yeah. And yeah, there's some hard things, but um, approaching them with light and love really made it easier and made a huge difference. So, and I had many teachers and programs along the way. I'll just shout out the like notable ones. To Be Magnetic with Lacey Phillips. I did that program for years. Mark Groves had a few programs, and I had hired a spiritual coach here in Calgary. Shout out to Dixie Bennett, who I worked with for 6 months straight weekly. So that was a really transformational time. So I just want to take this moment to thank all of the teachers I've met along the way and just thank you for the beautiful work you do in this world and how you've changed my life. So finally, it's 2022, and I had just had a very painful year. 2021, I went through a breakup, and I also lost a very close relationship with my sister. And per usual, I did all the work around those things. So I came out of it with a lot of peace and forgiveness in my heart as I stepped into 2022. And I found A Course in Miracles, or rather, A Course in Miracles found me because it was really like seeking me. I could feel it like coming into my field. I didn't even know what it was. And for those of you who don't know, A Course in Miracles is a uh, channeled spiritual text that teaches about love and forgiveness. And it's really about shifting away from ego and fear and into love. And as I began to study A Course in Miracles, something just unlocked inside me. And I started to remember who and what I really am and who and what we really all are. And I understood the teachings on a much deeper level than I could understand, like from this current human life. I knew, like, it's like my soul understood it. And it was at that point that it was like all the inner work I'd done up to that point had unblocked me enough that my crown opened up and God flowed in. And from there, things took off. I happened to be working nights in the field at the time for 5 weeks straight. And for anyone who's worked in the field and anyone who's worked nights, you know that they're very lonely times because when you work nights, no one's really awake or around. And when you're in the field, you're already like remote and alone. And I didn't realize that at the time, but it was like a little spiritual vipassana, a little retreat. And I would take these daily walks, and I just started talking to my angels, something I'd never thought about in my life. And then in my meditations, I started going into a much deeper place and I started to see and experience things. And I had no idea what was going on. Um, I I never thought that anyone could develop intuitive gifts later in life. I thought it was like something you're born with when you're one of those psychic people, because I've been seeing psychics my whole life. Um, but I had the sense that this might be what's going on. And so I Googled, I was like, oh, I just wish there was a place that I could go like train and learn about these skills with women going through the same thing. And I Googled witch camp. And FYI, that wasn't quite the place I wanted to go. But next thing you know, I'm listening to the Almost 30 podcast, and Nikki Novo comes on. And here she is talking about how she developed her intuitive gifts later in life and how she now teaches others to develop those gifts. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is clearly sent for me by God. So I signed up and I did 7 months of training, mentorship, practice with Nikki and the other women in the program at our own little witch camp. And life changed dramatically. It was like being a little kid and realizing there was this whole other world. And it's been there the whole time, but you didn't know. It was really, really the most magical time. And I had no idea on the other side of it that I would become a practicing intuitive. I had no expectations going into that. I was in full surrender and full curiosity mode. But here we are. And I am a year and a half into my business as an intuitive reader. So that's my story in a large nutshell. Would love to hear a little bit about you guys. Have you had a spiritual awakening? What's your journey been like? It's a little bit hard to talk back and forth through podcasts, but we can always connect through Instagram. But I want to finish this episode by talking about spiritual awakenings a bit in general. And in truth, guys, I never set out to have a spiritual awakening. I had no idea that was coming for me. I'd never even really thought about those words. And I'm not sure having a spiritual awakening is something that anyone needs to set their sights on. But I thought I'd talk about some signs that you might be on your way to a spiritual awakening and some signs that you might be in one or on the other side of one. So I've got 4 signs that a spiritual awakening might be on its way to you. Sign number 1, your life is seemingly in shambles. So we've all heard of like breakdown to breakthrough, right? So it's kind of this concept. When your life is totally thrown upside down, generally that's God trying to redirect you, realign you, and likely because you weren't going to do it yourself. So if you feel like everything in life has fallen to pieces, shout out to my friends in their Saturn returns right now. This is a good sign that an opportunity for a spiritual awakening lies ahead if you do choose to go that way. Number 2, that a spiritual awakening is on its way is you are in the midst of doing a lot of inner work and healing. So you'll hear me talk about it all the time, but doing the inner work is extremely powerful. And you'll never know when you'll hear a certain aspect of yourself that unlocks something huge, that has a spiritual awakening on the other side of it. But honestly, doing any work on yourself will result in a happier, more aligned life. Number 3, that a spiritual awakening might be on its way is your physical body is going through a lot. So if you're having a lot of like shit and symptoms and weird stuff going on in your body alongside doing some healing and inner work, we call this the symptoms of ascension. So a lot of stuff gets cleared out through our physical body as we connect to a higher vibration. And number 4, if synchronicities are hitting you left, right, and center. So if suddenly you're more aware of the signs that spirit is sending your way, chances are that there's an awakening nearby. There's a reason that you're more aware and that you're being guided. So those are the four signs that an awakening might be in coming up for you. And then I thought I would just talk about how you know if you are in a spiritual awakening or on the other side of one. Um, and I have three signs. One is you see the world, you're suddenly seeing the world completely differently, um, and like through a lens of love. So, higher consciousness, that oneness, that love energy, as you have a spiritual awakening, you will start to, it's like, you won't be engaging in dramas as much. You will have more, you will see things through a more compassionate and loving lens. The like small details that you used to get caught up in are no longer going to matter so much. That's generally what happens as you connect to higher consciousness. And then two, you just generally feel love and forgiveness in your heart. So that's similar to one, but feels like it needs to be stated. And three, you generally feel happy and at peace. This is such a huge one that's so often overlooked. I heard the other day someone saying, what's a great sign of being healed? You're happy. And I was like, what a simple thing to say. And yet, yes, like if you are miserable and unhappy, chances are that like there is some work to do. And um, yeah, anyway, so if you've been in a spiritual awakening, you'll generally feel happiness and at peace. Okay, so I'll wrap it up here today. Thanks for checking out Spirit Club, and I hope you join the club, and just sitting around for my story, learning about my journey. I'll be dropping episodes every week, so stay tuned for content that's going to help you along your spiritual path. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm super excited. Okay, bye.